Good morning, everyone. You're very welcome to this morning's talk on support and communication in the early years. What to expect from 3 to 5-year-olds. My name is Lee McGeever and I work with Donegal Parent and Family Support Service. I'm also one of a number of parent support champions across Donegal. The Parent Support Champion project comes under TUSLA and is involved in promoting 50 key messages for parents and the Parenting 24/7 website. We are running today's talk as part of the Parenting Support Initiative under the HSE Community Healthcare Area 1 and the Children and Young People Service Committees in the region. For more information on parenting, please see Parenting 24/7, mychild.ie, or Supporting Parents under gov.ie. Our speaker this morning is Fiona McGowan. Fiona is a senior speech and language therapist in Donegal Primary Care. Fiona has 16 years experience working with children who present with a range of primary speech and language difficulties, as well as children with autism, learning disability and mental health issues. Fiona will be joined by her colleague, Charlotte McGuire, who will answer a number of frequently asked questions at the end of the talk. We hope you enjoyed this morning's talk and find it informative. Without further ado, I'll pass you over to Fiona.
Thank you, Lee, and you're very welcome to our presentation, Supporting Communication in the Early Years, What to Expect Between the Ages of 3 and 5. And we've prepared this within the Primary Care Speech and Language Therapy Department. Charlotte, my colleague, who you'll meet later, was involved in preparing the information for you, as well as a few other therapists, Bridget Scanlon and Stephanie Ward. Here are our topics for today. We are going to talk about the language pyramid. We're going to talk about some barriers to communication development. We'll talk a little bit about multilingualism. And then we'll move on to talk about what to expect from your child's attention, play, social development, speech, language, and fluency. And then also what you can do to support your child's development. And do remember that if you have any concerns, please contact your public health nurse who will help you to decide if you need a referral to speech and language therapy. So here is our language pyramid. And this language pyramid outlines all the underlying skills that are involved for communication development to take place. At the bottom, you will see attention and listening as being a major skill needed for communication development. Play and interaction, also very important. We talk about receptive language, and that refers to a child's understanding of language. We also talk about expressive language within the language pyramid, and that refers to a child's use of language. And then at the top of the pyramid, we refer to speech sounds. And those are the sounds within a child's own language and the pronunciation of those sounds. Now we're going to talk about some of those barriers we mentioned a little while ago. One of the potential barriers to communication development is screen time. And you can see some images here of what screen time can look like. Screen time can be time on a smartphone, gaming devices, TV, and tablets. Evidence does suggest that too much screen time can have an effect on a number of things for children, one of them being sleep, whereby children may sleep less or have issues with sleep. The other area may be the health of the child, specifically weight, where children may be more likely to have weight issues or experience obesity. Those aged between 2 and 5 years of age should have no more than 1 hour screen time per day. And there are 2 links here that can provide more information on screen time. The next potential barrier to communication can be dummy use. Dummy use can affect your child's tooth and jaw development, which will have an impact on the full range of tongue movements that are needed for certain sounds like t and d. Dummy use can also lead to gaps between the upper and the lower front teeth, which may lead to a lisp, which affects sounds like s and z. Dummy use can also reduce opportunities to practice using lips and tongue for talking, or children may not want to talk. They may prefer to suck the dummy over talking. Dummy use can bring about mouth breathing, which can affect lip seal. and lip seal is really important for managing drooling and dribbling. And there is some evidence to link prolonged dummy use with ear infections. So here are some tips to stop dummy use or to start to wean your child off using the dummy. Only use the dummy at set times, and you can remove it when the child is asleep. Always try to remove the dummy when your child is trying to talk. You can offer praise and rewards while trying to wean the dummy from the child. And it's a nice idea to offer maybe star charts or stickers over food rewards. You can cut a hole in the teat so that the dummy loses its suction, and try not to replace lost or damaged dummies. You can give the dummy to Santa, the Tooth Fairy, or the Easter Bunny. And I suppose the other important thing to remember is that a dummy can often act as a comforting soother for a child. So you can maybe consider offering an alternative source of comfort, like a blanket or a teddy, when you're trying to wean the dummy. Now we're going to talk a little bit about bilingualism and multilingualism. Bilingualism refers to using two languages. Multilingualism refers to using more than two languages. And it's really important to remember that children all over the world learn more than one language all the time. But learning another language will not cause or worsen speech or language problems. And bilingual children develop language skills just as other children do. Now, from time to time, children may mix grammar rules between the languages that they're learning and are exposed to, and they might use words from both languages in the same sentence. That's all normal as they are starting to become bilingual. Here is a slide on information on some videos that are available on YouTube, and they have been put together by the HSE. There is a QR code that you can use that will bring you to these videos, or you can enter HSE Learning to Talk playlist into YouTube, which will also bring you to the list. There are 21 fabulous videos there to access, which will demonstrate lots of the strategies that we'll talk about throughout this presentation. I'll refer to them as we go along. So if we cast our minds back to the language pyramid, the very first thing we talk about in the language pyramid is attention. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what to expect for attention for children aged 3 to 5. So stage 1 is the distractible stage, and stage 2 is a single channel stage, whereby a child is able to concentrate on one thing at a time. And as the child is getting older through their preschool years, they may enter into stage 3, where they're starting to accept adult direction to help with their attention control. So in stage 3, your child's attention is shifting from a task to being able to follow instructions and then back to the task. But they're needing a lot of adult support to help them with that. In stage 4, it's referred to as voluntary control, where the child is shifting from a task to being able to listen to instructions, then back to the task, but they're doing this a lot more spontaneously themselves with less adult support. And then in stage 5, we call it dual channeled attention, where a child is starting to become much more independent and much more able to focus on things for longer periods of time. And they may even start to being able to concentrate and to attend to two things at the same time. So for example, doing a jigsaw while answering a question. Here are some ideas to help support your child's attention within interactions. Try to reduce the background noise first. Then call your child's name to get their attention. Get down to your child's level and make eye contact if that's comfortable for your child, and gain their attention. Support your child to stop what they are doing before giving them the instruction. And always make sure to keep the instructions short using simple language. Then you can check that your child has understood your instruction, and you can do this by asking them to repeat what you've said. You can use gesture and visuals, for example, a timer or a visual timetable to help a child regulate their attention skills. And always praise good listening and good attention skills. And it's really good to be specific when you're giving praise. So for example, I liked it when you listened about getting your shoes. In that situation, the child knows exactly what they've done well. We'll talk a little bit about play skills now and what to expect. I'll draw your attention to the left side of the table, which outlines the stages of play. Unoccupied play is when a baby moves for no reason, so such as kicking their legs or moving their arms. And this is the first sign of play. The next stage of play is solitary play. So this is when the child is exploring the world around them. They might be feeling things, tasting things, listening to the sounds in their environment. And you can support your child in this area by giving them a variety of safe and age-appropriate toys to explore with. The next stage of play is onlooker play. And this is when a child watches other children play, but maybe doesn't join in just yet. It's the first step in learning to play with others. And this is a very normal and healthy part of learning to play. The next three stages I'll describe are particularly developing in the ages 3 to 5. So the first one is parallel play, where the child is playing alongside children, but maybe not interacting just yet, but they might be playing with the same toys. Associative play is when they are playing together and starting to share the same goal. Cooperative play is when they're playing together more elaboratively, they're sharing goals, they're negotiating with each other, they're cooperating together. Next, we'll go on to the different types of play. So these types of play can occur within the different stages of play, which we've just talked about. So the first one we'll talk about is physical play. And physical play is anything to do with movement, ball games, dancing, and really helps with your child's muscle, bone, and physical skills. Social play is where children are starting to play with others. They're learning how to take turns, cooperate, and share, and they're starting to use their language skills a lot more within social play as well. Constructive play is when children are experimenting with building things and things like drawing. It really helps them with their movement skills, but also starts to introduce those concepts like distance and size. So for example, whether the object is far away or whether it's just small in size. And it's really important to let children work out problems for themselves during constructive play rather than solving it for them. There's lots of learning in that. Fantasy play is using imagination during play, and it's really, really great for language and communication development. So you can encourage your child in this area by giving them props, things that you're not using anymore around the house. This could be like a whisk and a bowl to be a baker, or dress-up costumes. The last type of play is games with rules. So, for example, board games. So here your child is learning about winning and losing, taking turns, and also it's often a really nice family activity to do. How to support your child's play skills. I like this quote, play is a child's work. It's really important when you're playing with your child to follow your child's lead. This means that the child is leading the play rather than following your ideas. You can follow your child's lead and add ideas. Always allow time for unstructured play because that's when the really great play ideas start to develop. Copy how they play. So if your child is pushing a car on a track, you can push a car on the track as well. Your child will notice that you're noticing what they're doing. Talk about what they're doing. So comment on it. Oh, you're pushing the car. I'm pushing the car too. You're talking in the here and now to help your child put language on what they're seeing. And most importantly, do remember that you are your child's best toy. So I've put a little reminder on this slide that there is a lovely video on the playlist I referred to earlier. It's called Helping My Child to Talk, Follow Their Lead. And this demonstrates really, really clearly how best to follow your child's lead in play. Next, we'll talk a little bit about social skills and social skills development, what to expect. So between the ages of 3 and 5, these are the things that you might start to notice being already established or starting to become better. So a child will respond to their own name most of the time. The child is starting to use their language skills for things like greeting, so saying hello, how are you, saying goodbye. They're starting to use their language skills for commenting on things. So they might notice different features of things. Oh, that's a big one. They're starting to use their language skills to ask questions. Who came today? They're starting to engage in conversations and take turns to speak and listen better. They're initiating play and interactions with others with their language skills, and their pretend and imaginative play is starting to become more elaborate with much more complex ideas. You can support your child's social skills by engaging in back and forth conversations with your child, but also trying not to ask too many questions, because this will give your child an opportunity to initiate interactions themselves. Model and expand on what your child is saying, and try to encourage sharing toys and waiting for turns during play with others. And when you see all these skills, don't forget to praise them. Praise good listening and praise good taking turns. And you can do it very specifically. Oh, I like the way you took turns when you played with Molly. That way the child will know exactly what they've done well. We're going to move on now to talking about receptive and expressive language skills and what to expect between the ages of 3 and 5. We've divided it up into what to expect for children aged 3 to 4 and then for children aged 4 to 5. So by the age of 3 to 4, most children can do these things. They can listen to and answer questions about a story. They're starting to understand and often use color, number, and time-related words. So for example, the red car, 3 fingers, I went yesterday. They're starting to use longer sentences and they're starting to link sentences together. They're describing events that have already happened. It may not sound like an adult sentence. It may have grammatical errors like I goed instead of I went, but they are referring to things that happened in the past. They're starting to enjoy make-believe play even more, and they are starting to enjoy simple jokes. They may not understand them fully, but they're recognizing that there's something funny in what that person has said. They're asking and answering many questions using words like what, where, and who, but they're still making mistakes with tenses, such as runned for ran or swimmed for swam. And they're starting to be able to use their language skills to plan and play games with others. Then by 4 to 5 years, most children can understand spoken instructions without stopping what they are doing to look at the speaker. They're starting to choose their own friends and playmates and then take turns in much longer conversations. They're understanding much more complicated concepts in language, such as first, last, might, and the others there. They're understanding words that describe sequences, such as first, we are going to the shop, next, we are going to the park. They're using sentences that are well formed, but again, grammatical errors may still exist in relation to plurals and tenses. They're also starting to think more about the meanings of words. So they may start to ask questions about what words mean, or they may start to notice rhyming words. They're becoming curious about words. This is a really important slide. These are all the strategies that you can use in all your interactions with your child during daily routines and play. The first one we talk about is waiting and listening. Waiting and listening requires the adult to be a little bit quiet at times. Even though it may feel more natural to talk, waiting and listening is a really, really powerful one. When you wait and when you listen, you are noticing what your child is doing and then how best to respond. Then you can start responding. So you may respond with a comment. So that's just saying something about what's happening. And then use repetitions for new words. Repetitions are really important because a child needs to hear a word many, many times before they're able to use it. Modeling and recasting is a really nice alternative to directly correcting your child. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about modeling and recasting in a moment. Expanding on your child's message is a really important one. So this just means adding a word to what your child has already said. So if your child says, I see a bus, you can say, you see a big bus. I've added a word into that sentence. And you can do this for even longer sentences that your child may say. If your child says, I see a long, long road, you can add, oh yes, the long road is very, very wet. Always remember to praise your child, and they'll know what they're doing well. We've talked about that a little bit already. And then the last one on the slide there is balancing comments and questions. So a really good way to think about comments and questions is that for every one question that you ask, you're going to follow up with four comments, and that will make up the 5 fingers on your hand. So one question with 4 comments. So an example might be, what's that? A comment might be, an airplane. Vroom. I think a pilot flies an airplane. That airplane is very long. So I've asked one question and I followed up with 4 different comments. I've put a link to the video here as a reminder to go back to the HSC playlist and have a look at this video in particular, add to the words, and it demonstrates really, really nicely how to add words to what your child is saying. So you might think, what do I say if I want to add to my child's sentences and words? You can add verbs, and those are action words such as walk, run, and jump. You can add nouns, and those are words for objects, people, and places. You can add prepositions, which are words for where, such as in, on, under. You can add adjectives, which are describing words, which is crunchy, juicy, and sweet, and there's lots more there. You can model sentence structures with correct grammatical forms, such as plurals, and plurals is when there's more than one. So horse, horses. You can model the past tense, the future tense, or those pronouns, he, she, him, her, his, hers. So an example might be if your child says, we go to the shop, you might say, yes, tomorrow we will go to the shop. You're adding something to what they've said. You're going to begin to use words that make sentences. So for example, the words and, or, and but. So the car is at the top of the track and the truck is at the bottom of the track. Would you like the red crayon or the green crayon? I love crackers, but I'm full up now. We talked about daily routines and interactions as being really, really great opportunities to model language and to add language and to use all the strategies we've talked about. So here's an example, bath time, and lots of vocabulary that you can add to that daily routine. So for example, your child might say, the jug falled in the water. The jug splashed when it fell. You're correcting the grammar and you're adding a new word. Here's an example for grocery shopping. Again, lots of vocabulary, verbs, describing words, and nouns that you can add to your experience of grocery shopping with your child. So in relation to all the skills we've talked about so far, attention, play, social communication, receptive language, and expressive language, we've put together a list of games and activities that you can use that will work on all of these areas. So card games and games like Snakes and Ladders and Pop-Up Pirate, listening games such as Simon Says and I Spy, singing songs together, lotto games are a good one for vocabulary, musical chairs, What Time Is It, Mr. Fox, and traffic light games, really good for looking, listening, and attention. Get Me games, it's good for listening to instructions. Going outside, doing scavenger hunts together, good for vocabulary. Facilitating opportunities for play with other children. So you're just giving an opportunity to practice all these skills that are developing so quickly. Setting up an arts and crafts corner at home is good for attention again and vocabulary development. Creating some make-believe boxes with old clothes and things around the house, really good for play and again language. Water play and Play-Doh, lots of vocabulary learning opportunities there. And then also using visual support for helping your child maybe understand some parts of their day. Another really effective tool for supporting language and communication development is books. So let your child choose the book, hold the book and turn the pages. Don't worry about reading the book from the very beginning to the very end. It's really important to use that strategy we talked about earlier, following the child's lead, for books as well. Allow your child to read the book in their own way. You can act out the story of the book, and that's really going to help your child understand what's happening in the book. Make a connection between the content of the book and your child's own experiences when relevant. So if the book is about a day at the beach, maybe look at old photos at the last day that they went to the beach and talk about it together. Using books is a really good opportunity to talk about emotion vocabulary. So the basic ones are happy, sad, angry, but the more complex ones like nervous and excited and confused, often books have really good examples of those situations. For preschool children, here are some suggested book types to consider when you're picking a book for your child. Repetitive and rhyming books are really, really great because they will make learning new words much easier, and rhyming is a very important skill for literacy as well. Children love homemade and personalized books. So if they can see a picture of themselves doing lots of different things in a book, they're going to be really, really, really engaged with that. And then non-fiction books are really great for vocabulary development. So you might pick ones on animals, transport, and things like that. So the important thing to remember with non-fiction books is try to not test your child and ask them to name things. So what's that, what's that, what's that? Again, follow your child's lead. Next, we're going to move on to speech and what to expect between the ages of 3 and 5. So it's important to note that every child is different and they will develop in different ways and a different pace. But these are some general guidelines of the expectation of accuracy with speech sounds and pronunciation. So if we go to the bottom of the ladder there, you can see the ages 2 to 3 years. So by the age, between the ages of 2 and 3, most children will have the sounds listed in that section. So they are p, b, m, d, n, h, g, w, n, y. Then if we go to the next step of the ladder, by 4 years of age, most children will be able to say l, j, ch, sh, v, z. Then if we go to the next step of the ladder, by 5 years of age, most children will be able to say j, z. And then by 6 years of age, most children will be able to say. And again, each child is different. They will develop at a different pace, but this is a broad guideline. So we talked about modelling and recasting a little while ago, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in detail now. And I'm going to talk about it as a way that you can support your child's speech development. So modelling is when an adult models the correct word, sound, or sentence for the child within naturally occurring situations. So if I'm modelling the sound g, I might make sure that I'm saying lots of g words when I'm talking to my child, but in a natural way. Then recasting is what you do when your child has made a speech or language error. You're going to repeat what the child says, but in its correct form. You're going to repeat the correct form a few times within that natural situation. So for example, if your child says, look at the big red bus, you're going to recast it, look at the big red bus. And I'm emphasizing the correct sounds. But it's really important to repeat it. So you might say, look, that big red bus is driving slowly. I wonder where that big red bus is going. Look, it's parking. So I've repeated the target sounds a couple of times for the child in that situation. Try to be at your child's eye level so that they can see your mouth when you're doing that. We'll talk a little bit about stammering now. Normal non-fluency, or stammering or dysfluency, they all refer to the same thing, can be a normal part of learning to talk and usually occurs when children are learning to converse in sentences. 1 in 12 children between the ages of 2 and 4 stammer, and about 80% of children within that cohort, it will resolve. Stammering can happen during periods of rapid vocabulary and life changes. You may notice changes in fluency. And here are some tips if you do notice that your child is stammering. Make sure to continue to speak in a really natural, relaxed way. Use a really relaxed rate of speech and tone. So you're talking slowly to model slow talking for your child. Minimize time pressure. Try to have a time in the day to talk about their experiences in a really slow and unhurried manner. And you can make sure that you have some time with your child each day that you can play together quietly or look at a book. Consider the language that you're using and consider the language that your child is using. Children may stammer when they use longer, more complicated sentences. Therefore, it may be helpful for parents to limit their use of open-ended questions that need a long answer. So an open-ended question might be, what did you do at school today? But instead, you could change that question to a closed-ended question like, did you have fun at school today? Or did you go outside during break time? Those require shorter answers. The other useful thing is to make a comment, to invite the child to respond, but to do so with less pressure. Again, I'm going to mention some videos on the playlist that we talked about earlier. Videos 17 and 18 are excellent resources to learn a little bit more about stammering, but also to hear a little bit more about some tips if you notice your child is stammering. So we've come to the end of the presentation. The take-home message, I think, for our presentation is to talk to your little ones and to realize that every interaction is such a golden opportunity for communication and language learning. The opportunities are endless and it happens in day-to-day interaction hundreds of times. And the importance of this is that the quality and quantity of what children hear with their caregivers in the early years have a really, really important influence on their language development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fiona, for that. That was great. So informative and so much to take home. So now I will come to yourself, Charlotte, with some questions that have been asked. So the first question is, at what stage should I refer my child for speech and language assessment?
Okay, so the presentation from Fiona contained a lot of information of what to expect at different stages. For example, with either understanding language, using language, or the speech sounds that we are using or our children are using in language. So if you're unsure, you can refer back to that. But again, just remember that this is the development that we expect for the majority of children, but not all children. You know, at age 5, an unfamiliar adult should be able to understand more or less everything that our children are saying. So if you find that you're having to interpret a lot for your child at age 5, then this would definitely be a reason for referral. If at any stage between age 3 to 5 you feel my child just isn't understanding what I'm saying, or they're just not using language like most of their peers or their cousins or their brother and sister did at the same age, and you're still not sure whether or not you need a referral, you can talk to, for example, your GP or your public health nurse, and they will be able to guide you as to whether or not you need a referral to our service. And if you're not sure, refer back to the videos and refer back to this presentation to help guide you. And if you really feel that you do need a referral regardless, you can make that referral.
That's brilliant. And I suppose the next question is, how do I refer to the speech and language service?
Okay, so all of the primary care services are now using the Children's Services referral form, and it has tick box at the start as to which service you would like your child to be referred to. These forms are available on the HSE website, but again, they are also available from the likes of your GP and your public health nurse, and they can help you fill in the form if you need some support. The Children's Services referral form will also need to be accompanied by the additional information form, which is appropriate for your child's age. Once both of these forms have been completed and forwarded to ourselves, then they're usually screened by a senior speech and language therapist who will look at all of the information and to be sure that primary care speech and language therapy is the exact service that your child needs at this time. Occasionally, we might contact you for additional information as well if we're just not sure. Once we have processed the form, then your child will be added to the waiting list for our service.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for that. I suppose I would just like to thank both Fiona and Charlotte for your time and providing great informative information in today's talk. I hope those watching have found it helpful, and just thank you very much for listening. Bye.